Good morning, ladies. Welcome back, everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 24th day of Mar Heshvan, the 8th day of November 2023. Today's class dedicated for the safe return of Romi Bat Meirav, among all the hostages that are being held regretfully in captivity in the hands of our enemies. May all the soldiers be protected. May all those who need a refuah should be healed. And may all the neshamot and families be consoled from heaven. Amen. So, one of the main things that we are seeing today, and we have seen it since this unfortunate tragedy unfolded back on the day of Simchat Torah, which I think yesterday or the day before was the 30 days of this unfortunate day. One thing we have seen among the Jewish people, besides the animosity of the world and the animosity of many citizens of the world or even governments, but we are also seeing a positive side of the Jewish people, which is union, or rather unity, ahdut. And many people all over taking upon themselves spiritual steps to remedy the situation. And before we actually begin the class, I will say what I've been saying that for a while, that how much we are blaming our cousins Bnei Ishmael for whatever it's happening, and they obviously are acting in a way which is subhuman, the way the Torah tells us about Ishmael. It shouldn't surprise us, their behavior, because the Torah already is telling us when Ishmael was born, what are going to be the derogatory types of the personality. Hu yeh pere Adam, yado bakol, beyad kolbo. In other words, if you just understand the pasuk, shouldn't surprise us how the low level of human behavior that Ishmael descendants is displaying against the Jewish people. But our biggest mistake will be if we believe for a moment that this is only a physical war. This is above and beyond a war of physicality. We need to understand, the Gemara tells us that what happens on the earth is a reflection what happens in Shamayim. And whatever actions we do here, it has a mirror or domino effect in Shamayim as well. We learn this many times. Whenever the person does a mitzvah, it creates a good positive reaction. The opposite, regretfully, is the same. So, since this is how we are viewing this situation, and without any doubts, before we actually go to today's class of the Mishnah, number 20, chapter 4, if you are home watching live, open the Siddur, and you'll find it in many Siddurim at the end, the Pirkei Avot. If not, any version that you have is fine. That the fact that it's a matter of war of the spirit, that they want to impose their way against Am Israel, and I will tell you a secret, that their goal is not only Eretz Israel. The goal of Ishmael is the entire world. You need to understand this. This is a war of religion. This is a war of the spirituality. But obviously we're not worried about the world. I don't want to sound negative, but Be'ezat Hashem, they will fail. They will fail. They will not succeed. It's a pasuk. But at this moment, they are utilizing perhaps, if I can say this, the last bullets that they have, just trying to create chaos and havoc among Bnei Israel and the world. And Be'ezat Hashem, the Pesukim of Shlomo HaMelech will come a reality soon, that they will fail and Bnei Israel will succeed and the world will benefit, which in a way It's interesting that we are seeing, all of us can be oblivious to what's happening in front of us, that there are governments that are changing their tune. They're changing the music for the Jewish people. Regretfully, we have the usual culprits, Turkey and company, and Russia and Iran and Cuba and Venezuela and Mexico, regretfully, and Colombia. We have discussed this the other day, that there are governments that are very vocal against the Jewish people, but there are also many governments that are changing their music about the Jewish people, starting from England, from Germany, from Spain, Italy, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Australia, and many others, which, by the way, this is one of the things that will happen around Mashiach's arrival. One of the things written is that leaders of the governments will be coming to Israel out of nowhere. It's happening. It's happening. Look at the wonderful gentleman from the United States, Blinken. I think that went several times to Israel, and different prime ministers went to Israel, which all this is written in the holy books, that will be chaotic in the beginning, gradually will become better, and eventually the entire world, even our enemies, will recognize the goodness and the essence of Am Israel. So how difficult and painful these days are, we understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel. But as I said before, this is not only a physical war. We need to remember that whenever the Torah talks about war, the Torah first describes how simultaneously to the war, to the soldiers in the front, they need to be a balance of spirituality being developed parallel. For every soldier in the battlefield, the Torah says, one person that learns Torah and prays for their success. And this is what we can do from Miami. We are 6,000 miles away, and we are praying for them, and I'm sure that everyone in their way, in their level, is financially contributing. I know what we have been doing here since day one, in conjunction with iTorah.com and Rabbi Mansur and the wonderful friends from up north, that we partner in shifting many of our donations through them to deliver food, to deliver helmets. We even did it this past Monday, helmets and vests, and getting people not only to donate money, but to pray, to learn, and to do Tehillim chains like the wonderful ladies have been doing from day one. Thousands upon thousands of chapters of Tehillim being read. So based on all of the above that I said, besides everything else that we have said, there is one more requirement that we must fulfill. And this is our changes, self-improvement. Let the Mishnah do the talking instead of me. I'm going to stay quiet today. Just we're going to read the Mishnah. It's difficult for me to stay quiet, but let's read the Mishnah together. Page 65. Rabbi Batya ben Harash Omer. Rabbi Batya ben Harash says, Heve Makdim Bishlom Kol Adam. Initiate a greeting to every person. Beheve Zanav La'arayot. Be the tail to lions. Be'al Tehi Rosh LaShu'alim. Do not be the head to foxes. You have it? I'm sure you should have it by now. Page 65, page 66. Let's read very quickly the footnote on page 66. Be a tail to lions. Better to be follower of the righteous, from whom you can learn good things and Torah than a leader of common people. Very easy to understand the Mishnah. But we're going to dissect this Mishnah to better understand what does it mean. Now, let me just open up the right page here. I think that I'm too much ahead. Okay. This was last week's Mishnah. Right here. In other words, the Mishnah tells me, be the first one to say hello. So the question is, to whom? So comes Rabino Batya, the foremost commentator of the Mishnah, Afilu lanochri bashuk. Even you see a goy, a Gentile, in the marketplace, you be the one that says, hello, good morning. In our days, if I look around the crowd, I like to say that most of us live in an apartment building, correct? In a condominium. Why do I say this? Because that is the first encounter that we have with an outsider. In your home, okay, husband, wife, children, that's easy. But what about when we leave our apartment? We go down, who is the first person you see? The concierge, the front desk, Hazak. Who is the next person you see? Hazak Baruch. These are your two daily tests in the morning. Baruch Hashem, I'm happy to hear that. Me too. For sure. Hazak Baruch. Let's continue. Comes the Me'am Lo'ez, and it says, the Mishnah teaches us that we need to be the one that initiate a proper relationship among people. Even though that sometimes a person may say, let that person say hello to me. Why should I be the one that says hello to you? So the short answer, says the Me'am Lo'ez, that the one that initiates this salutation, it's the bigger person. Because our good behavior reciprocates to another person, and they do the same thing to us. I'm sure if I told you this, I'm not sure even my wife knows of this, but there is someone in our building that whenever I come in, the person stands up. There is a goy. It's a Gentile. And I ask him, why do you stand up for me? Do you stand up for everyone? You know what he tells me? He says, Rabbi, you are one of the few people that doesn't matter what hour of the day is, rain or shine, that you always acknowledge me, even when I'm behind the glass in the booth in the front, you always stop your car and you wave to me. And that waving to me, it says a lot. I'm not trying to take credit for this, but this is something that we all need to do. And that's what the Mishnah says. Rabbi Batya ben Harash says, you be the first person to say hello, even though you may say, what's the big deal? The valet is getting paid to open the door of my car. I'm paying a hefty maintenance. For sure, they need to open the door. You know what the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says? What you pay or you don't pay, I don't care. You don't want them to say, look at this Yehudi. Look at this Jewish man or Jewish lady. And they know that we are Yehudim. Doesn't matter who you are. When you come in with a Sara stand bag of Kosher Kingdom or Costco, water and tissues and papers and all kosher items, right away they know that, and they come to your home to bring the packages, they see your mezuzah, they see your Shabbat table set up, so there is no way to escape. And even though you may pay, stand shwaya, please, respectfully, Even though you may say, Rabbi, it's their job. Yes, it's their job, but it's your obligation to sanctify Hashem's name. And that's why we always tip them. They brought something up from downstairs, the packages, Costco, supermarket, tip them. Don't be cheap. Because for $3 to $5, you may be cursed without you even knowing it. Believe me, I speak a few languages, and I'm not bragging, so I know how they think. I know how they think. I know how they speak about us. And hopefully in a good way. That's the reason why when we do before Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, Hatarat Nedarim and Hatarat Kelalot, we nullify promises, vows, curses, bad dreams, etc. If you pay attention to the text, it says nullification of curses behind our back that we don't even know. Continues. Further, although the Gemara writes that you should not say hello to people before you pray. There is a Gemara that says you're not allowed to say hello to someone before you say hello to God. But that's easy to explain. That the purpose of the Gemara of telling us this concept is to avoid the person engaged in a lengthy conversation before praying. But if I leave my building and I say to the front desk person or the valet, good morning, thank you very much, I'm not engaging in conversation. I'm being polite. I'm being respectful. And I told you in the past the story of the great rabbi in Germany that based on his age, when he was at the concentration camp, he was a guaranteed candidate, God forbid, for the gas chambers. Because younger people were sent, and the distinction was the difference between going to the concentration camp, and I don't mean a country club, I mean forced labor, against the gas chamber, was the strength of the body and the age of the person. I'm sorry to touch on a painful topic. And this rabbi's life was spared. And people in the concentration camp asked him, how could it be? Who did you pay? How much did you pay? Maybe he paid on the ground. Maybe on the cover he paid to somebody. He says, no. You know why my life was saved? Because I used to say good morning to the general that will make the decision of who goes to the camp or who goes to the gas chamber. He used to be a janitor, he says. He used to clean the front of the building next to the knis, next to the shul, next to the synagogue in Berlin. And every time I will come from my home to the synagogue, I will do two things. A, not stepping on the wet floor that he was mopping. This is common practice in South America till today. The portero, the building manager cleans the front, sweeps the front, celador in Portuguese, they conserje in Venezuelan, they sweep the floor, they mop the floor, so when people come down in the morning, they see a clean up front. Don't ask me about the rest of the street. But every building does it. That's common practice still today. So imagine yourself, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, the city is sleeping, and this rabbi is coming from his home to the shul. What did the rabbi did? Two things. Number one, never step on the wet floor. He went down the sidewalk, and then he went to the shul, and he always acknowledged this person. And he will say to him in German, a good morgen, which is like in Yiddish, good morning, and this goy will answer him a good morgen Rabbiner, good morning Rabbi. This Gentile became a general of the Nazis, and he was in charge of that camp to determine who lives or who doesn't. When he saw him, he said to the soldiers, this one coming up next, send them to the camp. And he survived the Holocaust. How did he survive? By acknowledging. That's what the Mishnah of today says. Be the bigger person. Don't say, you are me. No. Our case is we are here, and I will say something that maybe some don't want to hear. But I think that as the days and weeks are going by, we are able to feel that we are in galut, that we are in exile. Don't be surprised. We are in exile. And every day that goes by, and Baruch Hashem, things are, so to speak, peaceful and in a calm manner, Baruch Hashem. And we hope and pray that continues till Mashiach comes. But we heard what happens in New York, in Washington, in California, even not far from here, in Fort Lauderdale, in Hollywood, Hollandale, even our city. What do you think? We didn't have hiccups? We had. We spoke about them when they happened. But still, we need to continue praying for peace and harmony in Israel and in the world. Additionally, it says that in this particular Mishnah, suddenly the Mishnah brings me two apparently separate topics. One topic is be nice to people. Acknowledge the person. Because at the end of the day, like it or not, every human, every person that exists in the world, it has a godly essence. Like it or not. Some of them have the evil essence, like Hamas and company. But the normal good people that we interact daily, they are good people. But yet the Mishnah brings me a separate topic that here he brings, be the tail of the lion and don't be the head of the fox. Now what has to do with saying good morning to someone? The animals with the fox and the lion. So we understand what the Mishnah tries to say, that the lion means the good people, and the fox, as the nature of the fox is conniving and problematic, but like a sneaky way, thank you. But it says here in the Me'am Lo'ez, and it says, always gravitate to connect yourself with good people. And that's something that we all do, I hope. We gravitate to people that are good, that are healthy, that are good examples. And even though you say, but I'm very small compared to these great people, the Me'am Lo'ez says, don't worry. Because if you go to a perfume store and you don't buy anything, you're going to smell like perfume. Why? Because you absorb. If you go to a fish store, to a butcher shop, or to a tannery, you're going to have the same reaction. You're going to smell like fish, you're going to smell like beef, or you're going to smell like dead animal skin. That's a tannery. A tannery, you know what it is, right? For the non-Americans crowd, it's a place where they hide the skin of the animal, they clean it, they wash it, they dye it, they process it. And I was never there, but I was told that you must wear a couple of masks because the smell is very, very not pleasant. So the Me'am Lo'ez writes, and it says that gravitating to good people will always bring you good examples for your life. and gravitating to the opposite is the same. I think that in English or in Spanish, they have the same saying. Tell me who you go with and I tell you who you are. In Spanish, they will say, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. What does that mean? What does that mean? Very simple. The Mishnah says, you connect yourself to good, you get good. You connect yourself with the opposite, regretfully is the opposite. And the reason is the two body parts that the Mishnah utilize. The Mishnah utilize the tail and the head. Both of them are extremes, right? The tail is at the end of the animal, that's why it's called the tail, and the head is on top. So explains here the Mishnah, and it says as follows, that because the tail is connected to the lion, that alone, and the tail here means that a person is simple. Simple. What's the meaning simple? Good, decent person. And the shual, it's conniving. It's the opposite. And it goes here and it says one more concept, that regretfully we have seen people that gravitate to others. For example, in our days, there is a word very popular called influencers. Have you heard of this word? Now, in my younger days, we also have influencers. In the world of yeshivot, there is a position called mashpia or mashgiach ruhani. Who usually occupy this position? A holy rabbi. That he will influence us to become better. That was the type of influencers that I had in my life. But today, when you say the word influencers, where do you find them? YouTube, Instagram, whatever platform is there. And the world glorifies them in a wrongful way. That is what this Mishnah says. If this is who your role models become, we are in trouble. Oh, how can you connect yourself to the Hachamim? Last week, we mentioned, not here, but in the Gemara. The Gemara in Berachot tells a story. I only told you last time, I'm not sure if it was here or in the men's class, a formula that Rabbi Eliezer gave to his students of how to merit Olam Haba, spiritual level after the person leaves the world. He gave a few options. Maybe the word options is not the right way, because when I give you options, that means you need to pick one. He gave suggestions. Suggestion number one, listen to the suggestion number one. I say it in Hebrew and will translate. Izaharu bichvod haverchem. Translation. Be careful in the honor of your friends. Number one rule. How do you treat people? He didn't say how much Torah you learned. He didn't say how much charity you gave. He didn't say how much you observe your Shabbat and family purity and kashrut. That's a given. But he gave the formula. He says, rule number one, that's number one on top of the list. How do you treat people? That's a heavy answer. No one expected that answer. I believe so, correct? That's number one. Which is the last one on the list? He says, attach yourself to the Hachamim. He says, Tidbeku al birke Hachamim. You know what it means? That translation? Glue yourself, literally, to the knees of the Hachamim. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says. Now, why? He says it in today's Mishnah. Because when you glue yourself, you attach yourself. And glue doesn't mean, obviously, in the literal sense, but be connected. That's what the Gemara says. Why? Because guaranteed that when a person connects themselves to the Hachamim, hopefully the person will learn from them or will remain connected with them. That helps the person, their spiritual growth and development, which was something that we learned last week's class. Remember what last week's class was? Last week's class was connect yourself to the community. Because if we are not connected to a community, and it says Makom Torah, obviously a community that lives by Torah and goes by the Torah, how we survive as Yehudim. You think that if I, as a person, move outside of the community, of a congregation, forget about the rabbi now, if any of us decides and says, you know what, I'm moving to Opaloka, I'm moving to Hialeah, I'm moving to Doral, I'm moving to an area that perhaps has a more affordable housing and is less congested than what our cities are becoming. How long are you going to remain a Jew? Don't answer me. Without the spiritual and the emotional support of each other, we cannot survive. You all came to the class today. Chazaku Baruch. Why did you come? You did not come for food, because there is no food on the table. What happened today? Okay, relax. You don't have to bring food. There is no an espresso machine. There is regular coffee there. There is no, sophisticated matters. We came to learn Torah. So what does that do to me now? Gives me encouragement that I look forward to have another class of Torah added to my already busy day. I could have canceled today's class. I rescheduled it on Monday. I could have said the easier way, okay, this week we don't have. But I said to myself, how can I, especially in these situations that we are experiencing, afford to prevent people of learning Torah? That's what the Pasuk writes, by the way. Ish et re'ehu ya'azoru ulahiv yomar hazak. It's a Pasuk in the Aventura that we read, I believe, 2 weeks ago, and it says, will come a time in history that we are going to support each other. Ish et re'ehu, a person and their friend, ya'azoru, they will mutually help each other. Ulahiv yomar hazak. And we're going to say to each other, be strong. So when you come, you give me hizuk. When we learn, we give you hizuk. So it's a two-way street. You come, I give. I give, you receive. Continues and it says that even though that the Mishnah is telling us, be thoughtful of your fellow men, say hello to everyone. The Mishnah says, saying hello, it's a basic rule of derech eretz, of being ben adam, adame, being a mench. Can you relate to that word? Adame, ben adam, mench, being a person. But it says the Mishnah, not because of that, because you have a friendly relationship with someone, you don't draw the line. A person in life, like anything in life, we need to learn where to draw the line. So even though I may say hello to someone that maybe the way they are or the lifestyle that they have is not in accordance with our Torah, that doesn't mean that automatically I'm going to become excessively friendly to the person. Are we going to hang around together? Are we going to go on vacation together? Obviously, if you're trying to be mekarev, if you're trying to influence someone to become closer to Hashem, to our Torah way of life, the Mishnah already in Pirkei Avot, in the beginning of the Pirkei Avot says, Umkarevan la Torah. Our mission is to lift that person to the Torah, not, God forbid, lowering the Torah to the person. Because the moment we're going to start, God forbid, diluting the Torah, we get into trouble. And history already proved us. Throughout history, part of the headaches that we had was assimilation. You think that assimilation happened from one minute to the other? Assimilation was a process. 1 generation, 2 generations, 3 generations. And eventually, we know the unfortunate result. Comes the Me'am Lo'ez, and it says one more. It says, don't be, Shlomo HaMelech says, don't be a wise guy. Have you heard of this expression? I'm not sure if in the female department there is a parallel to wise guy. Is there? Usually wise guy, it's a term given to someone that wants to be a Hacham Bashi, who wants to be not holier than thou, but he wants to beat the system. And Shlomo HaMelech says, Al tihacham be'ainecha yira et Hashem. It says, don't be a wise guy when it comes to serving God. What does it mean? The worst mistake that any one of us can do in their life is when we exposing ourselves to a spiritual danger and we say, I'm immune. I know where to draw the line. Shlomo HaMelech says, don't cross that line. Because crossing that line, God forbid, may expose the person to a clear, dangerous spiritual moment. Goes further. Isaac, the story, the Gemara tells us that one day there was a group of fish traveling in the water, and the fox from today's Mishnah, it's a Gemara, tells the fish, why are you so agitated? So the fish answers the fox, we are afraid of the nets of the fishermen. So we are trying to escape. The fox says, why don't you come out of the water and spend time with me? I will protect you. It's a Gemara that brings this black and white. So the Gemara concludes, what is the Nimshal? What is the parable that we learn from this? It says the fish represents the Jewish people, and the water represents life, and the fox represents the Yetzer Hara, who wants to tell the Jewish people, leave the water of the Torah, come spend time with me. Come, let's spend time together. Can you imagine spending time with the Yetzer Hara? Sometimes we do. But can you imagine if he comes to us and tells us, I'll invite you? That's where discipline that each one of us needs to have, it's a requirement. Now, it goes further and it says, oh, I turned the page already. Mehila. It says that many times people have multiple personalities. He says sometimes the person acts like a lion. Sometimes a person acts like a fox. So he explains how does it work. It says, why the Mishnah talks about the lion. So perhaps if we look at our daily prayers, there is a Mishnah that says, Gibor Ka'ari. What's the meaning of Gibor Ka'ari? Be strong as a lion. The Mishnah utilizes different animals to describe how we should conduct ourselves. So it says, Yehuda ben Temar says, Heve'az kanamer, be bold as a leopard, kal kanesher, light as an eagle, ras kasevi, swift as a deer, begibor ka'ari, and strong as a lion. 4 animals: the leopard, the eagle, the deer, and the lion. For what purpose? La'asot reson abicha sheba shamayim, to fulfill the will of our Father in heaven, Akadosh Baruch Hu. Now, what's the quality that each animal has? Number 1, the leopard. The leopard is not afraid. When it says the Mishnah bold, doesn't mean the hair. Bold means courageous. Many times, when a person wants to do something good, and they understand that doing good, it's the right thing, but sometimes the person is afraid. What others will say, maybe others don't do it, maybe I'm not ready to do it. The Mishnah says, you want to do something good? Just do it. Like the commercial says, just do it. Don't hesitate. At the end of the day, we must remember that we are ambassadors of Hashem in the world. And whatever we do and say and function, that definitely creates light, especially when surrounded by darkness. The eagle. The eagle, as we know, is the highest flying bird, and is the only one that when they carry the baby birds, they carry them on top of the wings, not underneath. Why? So if God forbid somebody wants to shoot to the eagle, the mother or the father bird will get hit and not their baby birds. The protection. So when a person does the mitzvot, so the person is able to soar. A person is able to grow, growing higher and higher and higher. As the commercial says, or the song says, keep climbing. That's a Avraham Fried song, by the way. Kosher one. Ras kasevi, swift as a deer. The Mishnah writes, Zerizim magdimin lamizvot. Those who have agility, they do the mitzvot. What does it mean, the agility? This refers to the deer. You ever see the deers in Deal, how they run? I think that's the closest to a deer that we can get. Unless you go to the Miami Zoo. Okay, you in Deal in the summer, all the time. I'm not sure if in the winter, they come out in the winter too? Yeah? Okay, good to know. But you ever saw them running? They run in a swift manner, meaning to say, there is something good to do, don't procrastinate. Don't delay, do it. And the last one, Gibor Ka'ari. Be strong as a lion. What does it mean, the strength of the lion that we're talking about? Be able to defeat the Yetzer Hara. Because the Yetzer Hara, our common enemy of the spiritual growth, always finds reasons and excuses of why we shouldn't do something. You're not ready yet. Let's see if somebody else will do it. What's the rush? The opposite. The Gemara writes, I will finish with this. Mizvah sheba'a leyadecha al tahmisenna. A good opportunity to do a mitzvah, don't let it become hames. Now you may ask, what has to do mitzvot and hames? Short answer. The Gemara writes, Al tikre mitzvot ela masot. Mitzvot and matzot are the same letters. What's the best friend of the matzah? And what's the worst enemy of the matzah? I'll tell you. The best friend of the matzah is time. The worst enemy of the matzah is time. If you let it sit, the matzah becomes hames. If you do it quickly, the matzah remains a matzah. And that's why the Gemara says, mitzvah sheba'a leyadecha, a good deed that came your way, al tahmisenna, don't let it spoil. You have an opportunity, do it. You can do it good, with joy, do it in the proper way. So Yiratzon, let it be the words of Torah that we learned today, that we should have Besurot Tovot for Romi Bat Meirav among all of the hostages in Eretz Israel, and we should have Besurot Tovot and be Zocheh for the Geulah Shelema B'Meirav Yamenu. Amen. Have a good day, everybody. This class, Be'ezat Hashem, resumes on the regular Monday at 11 o'clock in English. Have a good day, everybody.